Hello everyone, welcome to Healthy Kitchen's Healthy You Cooking Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Dana Bosselman and I am the Integrative Functional Dietitian here at Livescape Premier. Many of you have been following the show for some time. We've been doing it all through the pandemic and now beyond. And today we're doing a little bit different format. I don't have a guest today, which I've been doing in the past, but what I am doing is breaking up the segment so it's a little less to swallow, pun intended, and really helping to help promote the Healthy Kitchen's Healthy You Club. So that's something we just started. We launched it about a month or so ago, and it's a membership-only club, and you can join easily by going to the Livescape Nutrition tab, and then a pop-up will come up and ask if you'd like to join the club, and you can say yes and follow the prompts to do so. And the club is really designed to help bring community together of like-minded people who are interested in just learning more about cooking fresh whole food at home. And as I always tell my patients, health starts with the foundation of good food, and really to make your food absolutely the highest quality and prepared with the most love, we want to do it ourselves. Do we need to do it all the time like that? No, not necessarily, but if we can do 80% of our own cooking and then 20% enjoy out on vacation or with friends or celebration meals, then that's a nice balance back and forth. So the Healthy Kitchen's Healthy You Club talks about, there's a lot of information in there about how to set up your kitchen and good resources and recipes and live videos and chats. And every month I join the community in a live Q&A, so you get a chance to really interact with me directly and other community members. Lots of good stuff on there. It's constantly changing. This month I'm adding a brand new plant-based menu. It's a 7-day, 1-week meal plan with prep guide. That's an added bonus to being part of the club. So if you'd like to join, hop in. Right now what I'm going to do is make a salad. The video is going to go on that site. And instead of me going into a lot of detail like I usually do around the ingredients and the health benefits related to that, I'm going to make a separate video that's going to be accessible on the club site. If you'd like to dig a little deeper and understand more about where your food comes from and how everything interacts and is synergistic and can lead to better health overall. So with that, all that being said, let's get going. The first thing that we're going to do is define our recipe. We're making a chickpea and black bean jewel salad. This is something that can be made in advance and then kept in the refrigerator for probably up to 5 days. And it uses some core staple plant proteins. You can certainly add animal proteins to this if you like, depending on your diet and your preference, or maybe just change it up by day, whatever suits you. But the primary proteins in here are beans and complementary to a grain. So with that being said, you guys might have looked at this recipe in advance and seen on here an ingredient at the very top of the list that you had never seen before. It's called freekeh, and that's just the name for young or green wheat. And it's harvested young and then processed, and it's still gluten containing, so don't think that it's a gluten-free option. But freekeh is more popular in Middle Eastern cooking, and it has more fiber, protein and minerals than our normal strain of wheat that we have here in the United States typically grown. So if you can't find freekeh, which you probably won't be able to unless you go to a specialty Middle Eastern store, you can substitute any other grain. So if you want to stay in that wheat family, you can use bulgur. If you are interested in making this gluten-free or you just want to explore some other grains, then you can go ahead and do something else. So I'm doing something else because I always like to introduce options. And right now there's a lot of buzz about buckwheat. And so I've gone ahead and pre-cooked this and chilled it overnight. Because it is a cold salad, you want to make this grain in advance. And then you can make extra batches and freeze it so you don't have to go through that cooking process more than once. And you can eat multiple times after you've got it done. So buckwheat is really fantastic. I'm going to talk more about the benefits of that in my separate video if you'd like to join in and learn more about it. But for right now, that's the grain that we're using. And it's a good high protein, gluten-free option. So what we'll do first is I always make the dressing so it has some time for the spices to infuse into the oil. So the first thing I want to do is add my olive oil, and it calls for 6 tablespoons of olive oil. I don't have a amount measured out in advance, so we're just going to do it together. And I like to use the extra virgin olive oil when you're doing cold things because it has a nice rich flavor to it and really rich in polyphenols. And we all know polyphenols are, well, if you don't know, there's a lot of discussion around that. Polyphenols are one of the best group of antioxidants to help support gut health. So there you go. So we've got olive oil in here, and then we're going to add some pink mineral salt, Himalayan salt, and I'm just going to measure out, it calls for about a half a teaspoon, and I put it in my hand first instead of shaking it right into the dish because, as you guys know, it's really hard to take salt away. It's easy to add but hard to take away. If you do by happen chance find that there's too much sodium or salt in your dish for your taste, you can add more citrus. Citrus counteracts that salt and vice versa. So they work in opposition but also synergistic at the same time, if that makes sense. The next spice that we're going to add is cumin. The recipe calls for cumin seed that you would toast, let it pop open, and then grind it. You can go ahead and do that if you like. That may be very therapeutic to be in the kitchen that way. Or if you're just interested in just getting the salad made and enjoying the process but not making it too involved, then just buy the cumin ground like this. And here we're going to add about a half a teaspoon. Don't overdo it on the cumin. It can be a really strong spice. If you're buying this spice and it's fresher, it'll have a stronger taste. So we've got that. And then the next thing that we're looking at is gram masala. This is another one of those spices that you may not be familiar with. And the reason why is because this is actually a blend of spices. It's called a warming spice, not in the hot spicy way like you would think of chili peppers, but in that sense of it has cinnamon in it and cloves and cardamom. It may have a little bit of pepper, but it's not spicy. It's more like a pumpkin pie kind of spice, if you will. So it's worth it. I would not skip out on this. You can make your own combinations. There's lots of recipes online if you wanted to make your own and store it in your cabinet, or you can just buy this. Simply Organic is a brand I like. It's all around town, and this is the gram masala. So this is coming in now next, and this is about a quarter teaspoon, I believe. Yep, that's what the recipe says. So we don't need to overdo it, but just enough. And as you do it, you'll start smelling those cloves and cinnamon. Oh, it's really nice, just fantastic. So we mix that in, and then the next thing we want to do is we always have in a dressing, we have that acronym of FAST. It's fat, acid, salt, sweet. And so we want to add our acid essentially. So here we've got a fresh lemon. And this is so easy, you guys. Just go ahead and give it a go where you buy the lemon fresh instead of buying lemon juice that's already been squeezed for you. And you can use a citrus squeezer like this. Put it together, and then we'll squeeze it right into the dressing bowl. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to switch over from my olive oil spoon to my fork, which is going to be a whisk. And here you go, just whisking it together nice and easily until you have a nice homogeneous blend. And we're going to use all this dressing on the salad at once, so we're not worried about it separating again in the fridge. If you really like this dressing and you want to use it for other things, you could make it and store it in a dressing shaker. It'll probably last about, I would say, 3 to 5 days, something like that, since there's no preservatives or additives to it, which is how we want our dressing. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to switch over to putting all of our ingredients together. This is what I call combining cooking, where you don't use any heat. You're just chopping whole things and putting them together once you've prepared your grain, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over and bring my big bowl up center, front and center. And here I am putting the grains. This whole thing was 1 cup dry. I cooked it in the pressure cooker for 10 minutes with 3 cups of water. And It fluffed right up. I cooled it off. I put a little bit of olive oil on it while it was cooling off so it wouldn't be as sticky. Stored it in the refrigerator. It was sticky when I took it out this morning. So I just washed my hands really well and just kind of did a little massage onto the bulgur and broke it up. So there you go. And you can see how that looks. And this is actually one of my all-time favorite grains. If you like tabbouleh, this is a nice alternative to a wheat grain, which is usually bulgur, but buckwheat is a good alternative if you like to try that. Okay, so then the next thing we're gonna add is a combination of chopped up cucumbers. I picked yellow bell pepper. You can use any color that you like, depending on what's available and your taste preference. I just thought yellow would be a nice contrast to the red cherry tomatoes. I'm always thinking about color when I cook, and I'm always encouraging my patients to think about color too. So you want to try to add at least 2 different colors to every meal that you eat. That'll help you boost your produce intake. The color can be a combination of fruit and vegetable, or it can be all vegetable. I tend to not like it to be all fruit because that can be a little too much sugar for some people's systems. So we're gonna add scallions, yellow bell pepper, and I use the tops and the bottoms of the scallions. The recipe has it listed in 2 different ways, which I'm sorry that was a little confusing for you guys, but the tops are more FODMAP friendly and the bottoms are not. So it depends on what kind of gut health you have and if you're doing a special diet. If you're not and you want to enjoy both flavors, then use the whole part of the scallion, that's fine. So now we've got a lot of color. The buckwheat starting to come alive with what we've added in here. The next thing we're going to do is add our cherry tomatoes. As I was talking, I just cut these in half uniformly. You can cut them again in quarters if you like. It's up to you how involved you want that to go. So I'm just going to mix those in. And then on top of that, I'm going to add some fresh mint. So that's what's left in the container. And I just washed this and chopped it up really finely. When you buy the mint in the store, you want to pull the leaves off of the stems because the stems are really tough. And even though you can chop them up, they tend to not have as much flavor or pizzazz. So now we've got, let me just mix this for you guys a little bit. And you can see here, we've got this beautiful bejeweled salad coming up. So we have the red, we have fresh mint in here. And then we're gonna add another herb too. Herbs are really the secret sauce of cooking. When you add fresh herbs, it really makes your dish pop and it really raises the nutritional content. So here we have cilantro. It's already been washed and chopped, courtesy of moi. If you have other people in the family that don't like cooking, they may really like prepping, or they may not think they like it, but if you start visiting and chatting and playing music while you're cooking, they may find it to be more interesting. Excuse me. So I'm mixing up the cilantro, the mint, all the veggies. And next, I'll show it to you. Ta-da! Beautiful. I'm going to bring in the complementary proteins. In this case, I'm using black beans. You can buy these in a can and then just rinse and drain them. Or you can buy them dried, soak them overnight. You can put a little bit of kombu in there, which is a type of seaweed, and it helps reduce the gassiness of the beans, which is always a concern for some people. So we've got black beans in here, and then I'm going to add garbanzo beans or chickpeas. These are probably my all-time favorite. I'm a huge hummus fan. For those of you who have consulted with me, you know I'm always talking about hummus as a way to bring in extra protein. It's fast and simple, and comes in lots of different flavors. It's the tahini and garbanzos with fresh lemon and olive oil, garlic, things like that. Okay, you guys, give me a second here. And I'm gonna mix all of this up. This is a kind of salad that really leaves you feeling satisfied and full. It's full of fiber, especially soluble fiber, which is good for our gut bacteria. and satisfying enough to keep you happy for hopefully 2 or 3 hours after eating. All right, so the only thing we're missing now is our dressing. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, so bringing back in our special dressing. I'm just giving it a little bit of a sniff, and that's kind of how I cook. I'm going to add a smidge more of the garam masala because I can tell it needs a little more warm. And I'm also going to add a smidge more salt because that enhances flavor. Some of you guys are being careful about your salt intake, and that's something I really like to talk about. Is sodium coming from processed foods is a much bigger contributor to our total dietary salt intake than it is from the bits of salt that we add when we're cooking. So don't be afraid to use a little bit of salt in your dressing. If you think about it, this whole bowl of dressing is going to be over this entire huge salad. So it really disperses the nutrients. I'm just going to now pour this over the top of our beautiful bejeweled salad. This is, like I said, kind of a classic Middle Eastern spice blend, especially with all the beans and the grains. And very heartwarming. So let me just mix this all up for you guys. And ooh la la, it's turning out great. We have one more little secret thing to add. If you look at the ingredient list, it says nuts. It doesn't specify what kind of nuts, so that's really up to you. You may have a nut allergy or just simply don't like certain kinds of nuts. If that's the case, then you can pick something that does work for you. So now I've got this nice and mixed up, and I'm going to add the nuts that I thought would really complement this well. So if you want my dietitian decision or dietitian suggestion, you know, they have chef suggestions. I chopped up some raw walnuts, and I really suggest buying your nuts raw. If you want to toast them, you can put them in a dry skillet on low heat and just stay with them. Don't leave it and walk away. So you don't want them to burn. The oil in nuts is really sensitive to heat. And so a low heat, mindfully watched over, is fine. And toasting brings out more sweetness in the nuts. So people who are switching from a roasted salted nut to a raw, this is like a nice in-between step where you toast it yourself. So I'm going to sprinkle these chopped walnuts on the salad. That gives it a nice crunch and texture. Walnuts are really rich in omega-3 fats, so something we love over here at Lifescape because it helps promote cardiovascular health and decrease inflammation. So there you go, everyone. It comes together really quickly. This is a ginormous bowl of food. If you don't want this much, cut the bulgur amount down or the bean amount. But it's nice to have a nice, adequate amount of food so you can serve multiple people throughout the week and don't have to go back in the kitchen and repeatedly to do things over and over again. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to learn more, please join the Healthy Kitchens Help You Club and look for this video and many other wonderful resources. And I hope to see you soon. Take care.